Hey guys, so welcome back to the channel, and yes, I promise we'll get to part 2 of the whole takedown, clapback, response to the whole Elisa thing, whatever you want to call it, but just want to point out that you haters and the Psycho fans are not the top of my mind, and neither should they be the top of mind for this channel, so we'll just get to you like whenever I need a snack or something, okay? So promise that's coming up in the next couple of videos. But today, I want to go over DP, Deserter Patrol, you know, that new Jung Hae-in show on Netflix, and to see how closely it probably resembles what really goes on here in Korea and what it says about Korean society. So we don't like to give away everything, and we don't want to give away like the whole spoiler, but I do want to say for this show, it is only 6 episodes, but it's surprising because I thought actually it was longer. So if you really want to binge watch a show but not feel guilty about it, it feels like at least like a 12 episode show. So you do get your time's worth. They're very efficient with the way that they made this show. So I was surprised. I was like, what? That was only 6 episodes? So it doesn't leave you feeling like, what? That was only like half of a season. It felt like a full 12 episode season, but only in 6. So totally worth your time on just that aspect. But really, yes, indeed. Does it fit in again with what's going on in the world? And what did I say about like drama writers gonna save Korea in terms of like bringing to our consciousness the themes of this channel and also the themes of what's going on in terms of reforming Korean society? Like, I don't even have to say it as kind of like this outsider foreigner. You know, don't come for me after that. Korean people are saying it. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more palatable and give it a different spin with a little bit more sass, okay? So I want to go over like top 5 takeaways. You know, Deserter Patrol essentially means that there's like, I didn't really know this, but there is a unit within the Korean military to track down people who have run off, because it is compulsory for every Korean male to serve in the Korean army. And as you can imagine, not everybody wants to be there. And when they go in, you might have some people run away. And so these are the people that go after them. And so that's why it's called DP, Deserter Patrol. And so what this shows, this TV show, is to kind of show that dramatic point of like what compels somebody to desert, and what does that say about the horrible conditions in the military. And it's not necessarily to criticize actually the military. It's really to kind of criticize what kind of laboratory of a social pressure cooker that mirrors the outside world gets compressed upon these people that go in there, that explodes. So yes, there is definitely legitimate criticisms of how the military needs to reform its systems, especially to protect its youngsters, our sons. But what it really does expose is that all of that breaks down because of the people and the mentality that they walk in there with, and then how they abuse these power systems that the military does need to reform, but the people go in there with what they already thought of as a Korean society going in. Essentially, what makes this very sad and poignant is that the lines that really do capture the theme is, why did you do this to me? When the abused in the military says to his abuser when he confronts them in a very dramatic scene that I won't give away, says, "Why did you do this to me?" And then the abuser said, "I just thought it would be okay." Okay. And another point was raised up. Why did you guys all just stand around and watch instead of help if you knew that was so bad? It would be nice if something like this didn't happen again. That was supposed to be some big point. That shouldn't be such a big point, but it is because, the passive onlookers that don't help. That's a big problem here. You didn't do anything to help me when, this is from the perspective of the abused. You didn't do anything to help me when you knew it was wrong, and now you're going to go and save this jerk? Like basically he was getting revenge on this jerk, and everyone was like, no, stop. Don't get revenge on this jerk. You're not that person. And he's like, oh, come on, guys. What were you doing when he was abusing me? Right? He's kind of got a point there. And then on a dramatic point, he says, well, to make a change, I have to at least do something. So that's kind of a breakthrough line. That is kind of like the pièce de résistance in this show. That's kind of like a call to society. To make a change, I have to at least do something. The way that he did it, most people wouldn't do, and we would not recommend, but I think it jars people to think that, wow, it shouldn't have to come to that. We should at least do something. It is an abnormal, artificial, horrible situation for most people to take 2 years out of their life. It used to be like, I believe 3 years, then 2.5 years, and now I think it's 1.5 years. So it's getting shorter in time, and things I hear are getting better. And there was a problem before where there was no cell phones allowed, so that really meant that you had no other way to call out for help or monitor or get evidence of like if something goes wrong. So abuse was rife. So just imagine this, like your normal self as an individual gets stripped when you go in. All of your normal ways to protect yourself, the way that you construct your identity, your social systems, your friends, your family, all gone. And anything that you kind of came in with, like maybe your street cred, your education credentials, or your kind of the way that people may have even kind of like known you from like where you're from, all of it kind of disappears. And they have this very strange system of just like a hierarchy of when you came into your compulsory service. So if a guy like a week ago came in, he's like a higher rank than you, and you have to listen to him, and he can abuse you. Now, this is the thing that is a bit of a problem, is that there is no delineation between where that is a useful thing and where it is abused. Because where it's supposed to be useful is that, well, when you're in the military, you should be taking direct orders without question from the people above you. And they're supposed to train you into that mentality so that if there is something that goes on, that armies move in one unit with no dissent. Because if you have chaos, then you die. You lose your country. But there should be also a line where that kind of direct command and response and power does not mean you take a lighter and try to burn off somebody's pubes. That does not mean you put a gas mask on somebody's face while they're sleeping and pour water in there and say like he has to not complain. The amount of abuse is just according to somebody's creativity and opportunity, and it just kind of like is overlooked. All right, so let's go over some of the things that I thought were very interesting here. So number 5, the victim is actually punished for reacting to extreme abuse. Why did you just all stand around and watch instead of help? You didn't do anything to help me when you knew it was wrong, and now you're going to go and save this jerk. So one of the guys, because they go chase after many different guys who ran off, and in particular, there's this one, and he goes off on a big revenge campaign, and you follow him for a couple of episodes, and he finally nabs the dude who's a particularly nasty guy. But by the way, if you want to see all these different types of, Korean guys, like in all sorts of different types of military, this is your show. And he said that, like, look, now, like, when he was at the point of, like, doing something really serious to the guy, and everyone tries to catch up with him and say, like, stop, don't do it. He's like, why are you stopping me now? Why are you stopping me now when nobody stopped him when he was doing this to me multiple times, all the time? And so it's really kind of bringing up, we all probably don't want to admit this, but we see this. We see this when people are abused. It's not like they're abused once. They're repeatedly abused, and we all just kind of look the other way, especially in Korea, because you can get lumped in with them. The abuse can come to you. There are a lot of costs for trying to help. So this is also the warning, right? Because the opposite is presented as Korea, and actually the opposite is also true culturally. So this is the dichotomy, because the opposite is also true, where you do have this kind of cultural trait of overly helping, but it's kind of like overly helping within the context of your clan, So if you're like in the clan, you're gonna be like, oh wow, this like community is just like, everybody is so helpful and looks out for each other. Yeah, but that's because you're in the clan and they decided that you're going to be in their club. And you have to know, like, oh, like, what were the borders of this club and why am I in that club? And so if you're not, though, dang, cold as ice, nothing. And so that's why people just kind of look the other way. Number 4, even now, with all we know, we're still so naive that we blindly defend the lie or the system instead of defending your own child or your son. So, like, there was one case where the mother comes and says, like, oh yeah, well, we're going to investigate, right? We're going to, like, really find out, like, how this all happened. Like, she's going to trust the system. And the guy that was supposed to respond, like, who was kind of like in charge, was just like, yeah, well, I guess I have to say the right thing, and yes, we are going to do our best. And he was just even feeling like he was supposed to play a jerk, and you can kind of see, like, he was like the borderline jerk, because he was a jerk, but even all of this got to him, and you could see by some moments of the show where even the jerk had too much of it, and like he had to rebel against the bigger jerk above him, and he got punished for that. So it's kind of weird, right? So like you'll see this in Korea a lot. Like the jerk that you thought was above you will also be like, oh, damn, this world is so unfair. The jerk above me like sucks, and you're just like, wait a minute, you're like the biggest jerk I know. And he's probably like, hey kid, there are bigger jerks than me. So it's just kind of like just jerk upon jerk upon jerk upon jerk. And so you kind of see like how it's like this never-ending chain, but we're so still naive to defend like this thing about like, yes, but we must defend it at all costs, this chain of command. So it's this blind defense of putting this social contract above our personal instincts, our personal sense of right and wrong, and our personal, like, really that kind of gut feeling of knowing that there's something really fishy about this, but really having to go along with the social contract, because that can easily be slapped back in your face of being non-compliant. And the language and the system still has a very powerful weaponization against you if you are in violation of that. And so that's why people so eagerly still naively just will defend this social contract. But I will say how ironically it's the bullies that just throw that social contract out the window. And yet, they're the ones that are seen as upholding or maintaining the social contract. The way that they get away with that is that if you just get into the position of power, then you have free reign to violate the social contract in all other forms, because the number one thing that you cannot violate is the respect for authority and power. So if you have that as your cover, you can violate all the other social contracts and social norms, because that is the big golden rule. Following authority and power. So remember that in Korea. Respect for authority and power is kind of like the federal constitutional law that will supersede city laws, municipal laws. So ironic, right? Because you're supposed to go in there as a tough soldier, and you're literally going in there with no weaponry, naked, vulnerable, and you are literally going to get beat up. Okay, so essentially what this means is that we do not know the difference between power and abuse of power. And again, the social contract is not necessarily between the bully and the bullied, because while that interaction is going on, there is no renegotiation of terms. Like when somebody is pummeling you, you're not going to be like, oh, excuse me, sir, but this is not part of the social contract. It's the people around the fight that have to maintain the social contract to say like, whoa, that is not right. The people around and the people who witness it are the ones who get to decide what the terms of the social contract are. Is that type of behavior okay? For example, we have a social contract and legal contract around the use of knives. You can look, there are knives everywhere. At any moment, that knife can be used to kill somebody. But yet, do we see people being killed all over the place? No. We use it for cooking. But the moment that somebody picks up that knife and then looks like they're going to be using it as a weapon, boom. What happens? The people around the situation enforce that social contract. They're not bringing up some legal code about like, oh, well, you're not supposed to use a knife for, attacking or using in a malicious manner. No, everyone's just like, that is wrong, dude. Put down that knife. We enforce the social contract, not the one being threatened. The one being threatened is just trying to save their life in that moment. They're not. It's the people around who either call the cops, who try to stop them. They are enforcing that social contract. So why can't we do that with the use of power? Why can't we say, yes, it is okay if you go into the military, even if it's compulsory. It's different if you want to go voluntarily to the military as a career. You want to be transformed. You want to be like taking orders, and you want to be turned into a soldier. But even if you are going there temporarily, you should be in a situation where you learn to take orders and obey authority and learn how to use power and authority to be part of a military environment. But a military environment excuse me, but I do not think involves taking out people when you're supposed to be resting and sleeping for battle the next day and bullying some kid and making them masturbate in front of you. I don't think that that's probably involved in the use of power, or digging up trees and saying like, replant my yard if you're like the captain because you don't like the landscaping that the military offered you. Get a gardener. I don't think that there is a problem with us enforcing the proper use of power versus the abuse of power. We do it with knives. Why can't we do it with somebody who has control of tanks, planes, missiles, big things that are bigger than knives, guns? 2, on a related note, you'll see in the show, if you try to appeal to authority, the normal route, right? Well, that's the worst place to go. That is when you are in one really messed up society. When, like, for example, if you are trying to go to your parents, but then your parents are part of the, criminal operation. This is a huge problem when, if there is something wrong going on, the people above just want to cover it up because they don't want that to come out because it's going to affect their promotion and they're just thinking about themselves and their retirement. I can't tell you how often this comes up in Korea, where just the selfish self-interest of the few, these people who just want to advance their careers, are willing to sell out everybody. And so they are willing to allow these kids to live with a lifetime of unhealed betrayal and trauma, just so that they can move up in their career for what? A deteriorating system in a military. If you keep doing this for not even generations, sweetie, just a few years, what are you going to do? And then boom, you're out of there and you're going to be like, oh, gee, I wonder why our military is so weak now. When I was there, it wasn't like that. Dude, you're the reason. And number one, they get mad if you call them a psycho. You can be a psycho, but you're not allowed to call them one. Now, this is the greatest dichotomy here in Korea, where you can be crazy, but you're the crazy one if you call somebody crazy, because it is a mortal sin to say anybody needs any type of mental health treatment. We've gone over it before. Basically, in the past, just like as in other countries, you can weaponize a mental health diagnosis to lock somebody up and then kind of like take away their assets, or, say that like you don't like your wife anymore. You just like say that she's crazy and lock her up in a psychiatric ward and just blame craziness. And so nobody really wanted to get anywhere near a name of a mental health illness. And so everyone's just like, no, we're fine. We're like, nobody ever has any mental health problems. But this also becomes such a problem because a lot of these people come out of here with some wounds and they never get healed or treated, and boom, you get to see a lot of people not okay. And even if they are okay, just witnessing this, what I've seen is that like you really start to get a sense of what people think is okay is really different. And I think this military experience has shifted a lot of the standards of what is okay for Korea had it not been here in terms of a compulsory military service. The reason why I say that is that I think you can really tell in a society where the real moral compass and values are in what people consider as okay to do. Okay to do means like, well, in this certain situation, yeah, you could do this, because if you say like what's right, what's wrong, is stealing right or wrong, is killing right or wrong, almost any person in any country, any culture system will have the same answer. But if you say like what's okay under a certain circumstance, you get to start to see what people's values are, and it could be very different. And from this compulsory military experience, I think what you get to see is a little bit more of a perverted sense of what is okay to do to people. And I don't even think that it starts from the military. I think it just gets solidified from the military. Because I will say, this is one thing specifically I will give away from the show, because it happens right in the beginning. And it seems so insignificant, and you'll probably forget about it, which is why I want to bring it up in this review. Right at the beginning, the opening scene, Jung Hae-in is a pizza delivery guy, and this little boy, this little 5-year-old kid that he's delivering the pizza to his family, tries to con him out of 50 cents. He lies, and he says like, oh mommy, when I got the pizza from him, he didn't give me the 50 cents change, but he had just pocketed it, right? And then the mom kind of knew that her kid was lying, but she didn't want to admit that her own kid was a liar. So then she yells at Jung Hae-in, and Jung Hae-in comes back and says like, look, I did not steal that, okay? And then she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then she calls the manager and then yells at him, and then the manager yells at Jung Hae-in. But really what that woman did was teach that child that it was okay to cover up his lie. Speaking of cover-ups, cover up a lie over 50 cents, degrade somebody just because he's a pizza delivery guy, he has no power, it's okay to do that to him, and just kind of save your pride. She taught that was okay to do. And so I think what happens is like when you're forced into the military like this, you collect all of these dysfunctional things of like what's okay to do, and you're just like, oh my God, I had no idea that was okay to do, that was okay to do, that was okay to do. And boom, you're like in this pressure cooker and you don't know what's gonna come out. Some people, maybe can just come out real easy and it's fine. And other people, boom, it's just like a horrible combustion. And the worst thing though, the main point is what you witness. And what you start witnessing is everybody's like messed up version of what is okay, and you get to see the worst of it, not the best of what is okay, the worst of what people think of is okay. So now you've just basically had like a 2-year college course in the worst of what is okay to accept in Korean society. So then you get out there. In some ways, I guess that helps your street smarts. And in another way, it gives you a whole new list of things of like, oh, I guess that was okay because I saw it in the military. Oh, that was okay, I saw it in the military. Yeah, let's do all this stuff because it's okay to do. And then there they go, hurting other people and causing more betrayals and trauma. And then, like I said, these people aren't healing themselves because there's no need for mental treatment. Then you wonder why the economy's not doing well. Yeah, recession, depression. Yeah, start with the people. Maybe the people are depressed and can't work as well. So in any event, I thought this was an amazing show. Barely talked about any of the specifics because I didn't want to ruin it for you. It almost felt like 6 Busan International Film Festival movies pieced together. Something about the sound of it too, the music, the cinematography, it was very touching. And the acting was amazing, the set was amazing, Jung Hae-in is amazing. Yeah, all of the guys were amazing. Very realistic. I just thought it was just amazing all across the board. And I thought it was extremely timely that the screenwriter really did get that point across of why did you guys just watch instead of doing something. Alright guys, we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.